if Trump is serious about reducing the current account to zero, then foreigners have to sell stocks, period. It's just math. And then the question is, okay, well, can the US government survive financially if there's a big decline in capital gains taxes because the market's not going up? I don't think so. Therefore, we get a printing money function and Bitcoin benefits. It finally decouples from tech because of the structural flows and what needs to happen from an affordability standpoint for the U.S. government.
Hayes kicks off by describing the immediate chaos following what he calls Liberation Day, the initial reaction to a bold set of tariffs announced by Trump, which were then rapidly walked back. The market's knee-jerk response was violent. Stocks plunged, Bitcoin dropped, and yields ripped higher. This was the consequence of hedge funds engaged in basis trades getting margin called. As liquidity vanished and risk escalated, the MOVE index, a measure of bond market volatility, spiked intraday to 172. Bitcoin initially appeared to decouple, beginning to rally while the traditional equity market reeled.
Please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. You can also check out our other videos on cryptocurrencies and the overall digital asset space and drop your comments and observations in the comments section below. Everything you do helps with the YouTube algorithm and immensely contributes to the channel's growth. Thanks and enjoy the video.
I think it's an early signal, but we might not get the demonstrative validation that we like because Trump backed off from the maximalist position so quickly. So obviously in the first few days after Liberation Day, stocks crashed, Bitcoin crashed. Okay, stocks just high beta NASDAQ, fits the narrative. Then the yield started ripping as basis trading hedge funds were getting margin called, and people were afraid that there was being an unwind of all these positions and front running that trade. And the market stress started to increase. MOVE index went to 172 intraday, and Bitcoin started to rally. But then because Trump and the team pivoted so quickly, then we got back to business as usual and everything just goes up together. It's just a question of how much. And so if, further to today's press conference, if it's no longer I'm going to file Powell, it's no longer China's a big bad boogeyman, we're going to find a deal, then everything goes up. Bitcoin goes up more, but everything goes up. And so we don't really get a test of this. Is Bitcoin just high beta NASDAQ in the short term? Now, in the long term, I think that US tech exceptionalism as a narrative is dead. There are cheaper ways to do AI. You don't need to spend all this money. There's obviously DeepSeek and some other really cool LLMs coming out of China. It's questionable whether all this CapEx is being used. We're starting to hear reports from different channel checks on Amazon and Microsoft and them canceling leases on some of these data centers and whatnot. So again, big US tech spent a bunch of CapEx, just like they did in 2001. And we know what happened to Cisco. We're done 90-something freaking percent. Not to say that Google's going out of business, but I don't see structurally how these companies are going to be the leaders of the next rally. So it might not be that there's some sort of dislocation due to a divorce of the US and China and sort of trade. It's just the leaders of the last cycle become the laggards of the current cycle, and that being US tech. And Bitcoin continues to outperform because global liquidity continues to rise. China's not alone. It's every major economy needs to print a bunch of money to basically cushion the effects of this attempted divorce, this decline in globalization. But at the end of the day, yeah, they're going to print money. Bitcoin benefits. Now, the reciprocal of the current account deficit in the US is a financial account surplus. And so all these dollars that got earned, the trillions of dollars that got earned selling stuff to America, got recycled into treasury bonds and stocks and, Mag 7, all the big US tech stocks. So mathematically, if Trump is serious about reducing the current account to zero, then foreigners have to sell stocks, period. It's just math. And then the question is, okay, well, can the US government survive financially if there's a big decline in capital gains taxes because the market's not going up? I don't think so. Therefore, we get a printing money function and Bitcoin benefits. It finally decouples from tech because of the structural flows and what needs to happen from an affordability standpoint for the U.S. government. Well, I mean, first off, Bitcoin has performed better than gold if you take a look just about any time frame. So this is more of a relative thing. People see it going up and all that. And I own lots of gold. That's a great trade. At the end of the day, I think the big two events in the gold market of the last few years was February 2022, when the Biden administration decided to steal Russia's assets and freeze them, and destroy property rights. I mean, properties are already kind of destroyed, but to take the largest commodity producer in the world and say, okay, we're going to take your shit, that's a different sort of escalation. And then Trump rolled out these maximalist tariffs on everything except for gold and some commodities, which is tell in terms of where the system's going. So if you're a central bank manager or some sort of sovereign wealth individual and you've got all these dollars coming in, do you want to make the problem worse of owning these treasuries that you can't sell? The liquidity has declined. If you piss off the president, they sanction you and you no longer have access to your money. Do you want to keep buying that? Or do you want to buy gold, which has always been, for 10,000 years, sort of this neutral, stateless asset where people save energy for human civilization? Well, I want to buy more gold. And that's what they've been doing. Central banks around the world, especially in the global south and current account surplus countries, have been increasing their purchases of gold. Obviously, China's doing so. Other countries as well. Even like Poland and the EU, they have an explicit target. They want to bring it up to something like, 15 or 20% of their central bank reserves. So everybody understands that treasuries are no longer a risk-free asset. Yes, U.S. government can print nominal dollars to pay you back. That's if they want to pay you back. If you're Russia, they don't want to pay you back. If there's a research piece by some Deutsche Bank strategist a few weeks ago stating that, could the Trump administration refuse to renew dollar swap lines and cripple the EU because they didn't do something he wanted them to do? Right? Again, that's just another part and parcel of a treasury bond is not risk-free. There is risk. You have to start asking yourself, what if? And when you start asking yourself, what if, then you might as well own gold, because there is no what if in gold. I own the gold in my vault. I've got a guy with a gun guarding it. I know that I've been able to buy oil and seeds and whatever for thousands of years with this shiny gold, this shiny metal. It's going to last longer than a U.S. treasury bond. I'm going to own some of this. That is the structural bid behind gold.
What about sovereign Bitcoin adoption? Hayes says the most realistic path isn't through direct central bank purchases, at least not yet. Instead, we'll see state-controlled Bitcoin mining. He points to China as an example. Despite banning private mining, China still contributes around 20% of Bitcoin's hash rate via state-owned entities. Why? Because mining converts surplus energy into hard money. Other energy-rich nations, especially in the Middle East, are adopting a similar model. For them, it's not about buying Bitcoin on the open market. It's about saving excess energy in Bitcoin, storing value through computation.
They understand gold. They've been trained in gold. They read history books about gold. I think, the most likely outcome would be just do something like what China is doing, right? 20% of the hash rate comes from China. You can't privately mine Bitcoin in China. It's all the governments and state-owned entities doing it. So if you have a surplus of energy, then you save it in Bitcoin. Some countries in the UAE are doing that, oil exporting nations, all that kind of thing. So I think it's more likely that you say, okay, well, I'm producing excess energy. I'm going to store that in Bitcoin versus I'm going to, buy Bitcoin with my dollar earnings. Now, of course, there's smaller countries like El Salvador will do this, but I'm talking about like major economic powers. Central banks say, I'm going to buy some Bitcoin and hold it. Again, that's just my view. Maybe I could be wrong. I just believe they understand gold. Eventually, the Fed will come around. They've already indicated that quantitative tightening is tapering. They might do some sort of like balanced runoff for mortgage-backed securities, the maturing mortgage-backed securities. That money is in purchasing fresh new treasuries. So there's lots of things that you can do that aren't quantitative easing, because that's a bad word. The plebs know what quantitative easing is. They know that means inflation. Yeah. You can't do that anymore. You got to be more creative. So I think we have to be flexible in our mental models of what quantitative easing means, what money printing means. Look at the second order and third order effects of, okay, well, if they do this, how do the other market participants react? Do they buy more bonds? Do they move money from a sterilized pool on some central bank balance sheet into the general market, which can be releveraged through the banking system? So we have to be a little bit more, I guess, indirect in our thinking of how the quantity of money changes as treasury officials all across the world sort of take control from the central banks. Because the central banker says, I want to be independent. I care about the value of the fiat currency, blah, 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 right? And that's what they believe. But the treasury official says, this government's broke. The politicians want to spend the money. I work for the politicians. Therefore, I will make sure the government can fund itself at an affordable level. So I think at the end of the day, the world needs Chinese cheap goods, cheap and high quality goods, I should say. They're very high quality these days. It's the most advanced manufacturing setup in the world, which is why everyone makes their stuff there. Period. End of statement. There's no debating that. So, okay. So what happens when you make something more expensive, but there is a imperative for lots of parties that still want the good, like, illegal drugs in most countries, right? There's a demand. There's this function that says they're illegal, but the drugs still get consumed. Same thing. There are imports from China that are necessary for every single good in the world. They're cheap and they're high quality. No one else can, even if America completely was successful in this tariff thing, they're not going to have factories to replicate the Chinese ecosystem from, maybe 5, 10, 15, 20 years, right? It took China 30 years to build this situation. So the goods are going to find their way to America at the end of the day. People are going to cheat and do all this sort of things. There might be some secret pathways that are allowed that face-saving measures so that, both sides can claim that no trade is happening. But if you really dig through the details, there's trade happening. It's just more expensive. You just increase the cost of the good. But the good is still going to get there because China is the only one who can make it. Until that's not the case, then these tariffs will be effective in making things more expensive around the world, but ineffective from actually decoupling the world trade ecosystem.
Arthur Hayes paints a picture of a world entering a new monetary and geopolitical regime. The days of U.S. tech dominance and dollar hegemony are fading. In their place, we see the rise of hard assets, energy-based money, and sovereign-level Bitcoin accumulation. For investors paying attention, this is more than just a short-term play. It's a fundamental shift in how capital moves, how risk is priced, and how value is stored. Please like and subscribe.